All right, Daniel 8. Daniel 8, and we are at verse 9. Daniel 8, verse 9. Let me see if I need to do any kind of recap. No, if they missed it, they just missed it. Daniel 8, verse 9. Yeah. Okay, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. We talked about that. Israel's the center of the earth in God's point of view. So all directions will originate from Israel.
Mm-hmm. So pleasant land is Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I've heard you mention that God referred to the wilderness as
the
pleasant land.
Any place he's planted his people is the pleasant land.
Okay. So because it's his will.
He actually gave them that. The wilderness belongs to Israel. So every place the sole of their feet landed belongs to Israel. And he called it a pleasant land.
So when they despise the pleasant land, I've taken that for years.
That's the wilderness, yeah.
To mean like they didn't believe, like in Numbers 13, 14, somewhere in that vicinity, where they just didn't believe,
mm-hmm.
that was a good situation for them to be in.
Yeah, going into Canaan. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's how I took that, but I think it's both.
Yeah, but it all belongs to them. But the despising, I'd say, started in the wilderness.
Yeah.
That's the only land they knew to despise, and he called it a pleasant land. It was pleasant because he was feeding them and guiding them. So from his point of view, they shouldn't have any reason to complain. Verse 10, and it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Obviously, this is a supernatural thing. It's these stars are the host of heaven, and it's not like twinkle, twinkle, little star. It's not like the planets up there. It's something that the host is an army, and he's this little horn. We'll see it is the Antichrist and as Satan incarnate. The host of heaven in verse 10 there, that's the angelic host, supernatural beings that are cast down. Look at it in 1 Kings 22.
This also ties into Judges chapter 5.
Yes, Judges 5:20.
Mm-hmm. It just
mm-hmm.
Not that I understood, but collective. That made
yep.
throw my neck.
The stars in heaven fought in their courses against Sisera that day.
Got to talking
about 1 Kings 22.
Yeah. I did.
Judge 9.
Yes, somewhere in there. Okay. Tennis ball goes wide.
You can, I mean, we have covered it, but that is a cross-reference, Judges 5:20. 1 Kings 22, verse 19. And he said, hear thou therefore the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him, on his right hand and on his left. So these are the beings of heaven. They're called the hosts of heaven, and that's part of what is being cast down. 2 Chronicles 18:18. Cox just said they're working to get our service back. It's going right now. We're having service. 2 Chronicles 18:18. Again he said, therefore, hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting upon his throne, and all the host of heaven standing on his right and on his left. Very same verse. If God puts the same thing in the Bible twice, it's to make an impression. Because there's a lot of things that are not in the Bible I kind of wish there were. There's some things I wish that we'd got more detail on. And he said, no, I'm saving room to repeat a few verses because I know you're slow and you'll skip over it. So there we understood there's a host that's in heaven above us. And those beings, we'll find more info on them in the book of Daniel, but for now, just notice they're a host up there. Revelation 1. Revelation 1, verse 20. They're called hosts or they're called stars. Revelation 1:20. The mystery of the 7 stars, which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches. And the 7 candlesticks that thou sawest are the 7 churches. So there he's told you plainly that the stars that he's referring to are angels, heavenly beings. Revelation 12 verse 4. Here's where these hosts are cast down. Revelation 12:4. And his tail, the his here is the devil, and his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to deliver her child as soon as it was born. Look at verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. That's exactly what Daniel's talking about. It's talking about a third of the angels that are going to fall future in the tribulation. It falls there after the woman has run to Petra for protection. The devil's called a great red dragon. He's called a serpent. He has several names that are good types of him. The dragon is not something we understand on the earth. We don't have any dragons today. I mean, we might call people a dragon, but the dragon of the Bible is described. It's not something nice. A serpent is not something nice, even though nowadays it's become a pet. I don't know why people think that's a pet. Historically, it's been satanic all the way through. If you liked snakes, it was like people liking black cats. There was something spooky about it. Look at Ezekiel 28. Ezekiel 28, verse 14. This host of heaven, these angelic beings that are up there, Lucifer was originally up there. Ezekiel 28:14. Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so. This is God speaking. So he's saying, I put you in place as an anointed cherub. Thou wast upon the holy mount of God. Okay, mount for situation is how he refers to it in Psalms. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire, more than likely the lake of fire. Verse 15. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created till iniquity was found in thee. That he gets cast down. In the Bible, he gets cast down 5 times. It's on his 5th event that he loses, that he goes away forever. Isaiah 14. Isaiah 14:12. You find the Bible many times. God, you know, if you watch TV, we don't watch it, but, you know, we choose what we're going to watch. But if you watch a TV, if you look at the TV guide that tells you what's going to come on, it's all reruns. They're going to play the same thing over and over and over. They get that from somewhere. The Bible. The Bible is circular. All of these events, you'll see them repeat and repeat because they're foreshadowing. They're telling you of a big event that is future to take place. Here's in the past, Satan fall, and we know he's going to do it again in the future. Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. That is, we've seen before, the stars are the angels that are up there. And he says, I'm going to be above all of those angels. No, that's God's spot. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Now, he has a lot more respect than humans do. He does not say, I will be the Most High. He's not that stupid. He says, I'll be like the Most High. And God said, that's close enough, buddy.
It's almost
Just for
like
saying that.
there's an acknowledgement there that he can't
Yes.
get rid of God.
Right. Verse 15. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Now, when's that going to happen? That's going to happen at the end of the tribulation. It does not happen at the end of the millennium. That's where he goes to the lake of fire. But here, brought down to hell, will be the end of the tribulation. So that's still a future event. Verse 16. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Now, we're not given any further information on what kingdoms he's referring to. Historically, there could have been some kingdoms that he was over when he was Lucifer on the earth. However, we know it prophetically, he will be over the kingdoms of this earth. And that's the time he's going to be cast to hell. Verse 17. That made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners. So you find this, I'm not going to go deep into it, but prisons are not a biblical thing. In the Bible, you have an immediate repercussion for an offense. So if you need to repay it, then you repay it, and usually it's in the extreme. If you need to be put to death, you're put to death. Here, it's the devil who has a prison. It's not, that's not part of God's law. Genesis 1:2. Genesis 1:2, this is obviously the fall of Lucifer early on. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So there's where Lucifer fell in the past, his original fall. Look at it in Isaiah 45. Isaiah 45:18. God is not an evolutionist who starts something and then has to keep remaking it in order to get it right. Something caused the earth to be without form and void, obviously Satan's fall. Isaiah 45:18. For thus saith the Lord that created the heavens, God himself that formed the earth. He made it, he hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am the Lord, and there is none else. So the devil is going to work just opposite of that. His move is, I don't want the earth to be inhabited. What he wants the earth to be inhabited with is his type, his kingdom of wickedness. So you find today the push is population control. That's of the devil. God says, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish the earth. That is, fill it up. And the devil's move is, no, let's empty it out. We got to leave room for the trees to grow. Judges 1. Not Judges, Jude 1. Jude 1, verse 6. Where I'm at, Jude 1:6. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, hath he reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. That is, there's some that are waiting to be judged. That judgment's not going to take place until after they'll be judged with Satan. when he comes up out of the pit to be judged. Look at verse 9. The context we've seen so far is angels. The angels that kept not their first estate. Okay, verse 9. Yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, heavenly host, a supernatural being, so forth, so on. Verse 10. But these what? Angelic beings. Speak evil of those things which they know not, so forth, so on. Verse 13. Raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame, wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. So, careful if they tell you wish upon a star. That's not a good thing to do. And now they've got some phony baloney where they'll name a star after you. And you can pay in some money for that. I'll name a star after you if you'd send me some money. You can't name the star. The Creator names the stars.
Said he knows the star. The name of every star.
That's right. The seven heads on this creature that comes up is revealed to us in the book of Revelation. He says he has 10 horns. And we've seen that little horn is referred to as the Antichrist. Daniel 8, verse 9. He said, and out of one of them came forth a little horn. I think that's a dig at the devil. This is the description of the devil, the little horn. God's not really giving him much publicity here. He's a little horn. Compared to God, he is. Compared to all man, he's pretty powerful. But to God, he's just a little horn. Revelation 13. Revelation 13:1. Revelation 13:1. I stood upon the sands of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. No wonder God has this. It's almost an addiction. His favorite pastime is to beat the devil, and he does it repeatedly. And he brings him back up for a rerun because he's trying to blaspheme God. So God says, okay, you want to act like that? I'll just beat you up a few times. Revelation 17. Revelation 17, verse 3. If you wanted to find one religion that's closely related to the devil, you would have to go to the Catholic Church. It's just clear from Scripture. Revelation 17:3. So he carried me away in the Spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. That's the colors of the Roman Catholic Church. That scarlet, they've got that chalice and they want to be they want to be God on earth. Sound familiar? That's going to be the devil. He's going to sit down and declare himself to be God on the earth. That's exactly what the Pope is. He speaks ex cathedra, that is in the place of God. The little horn of Daniel is obviously not what many people try to make it out to be. We've seen what's going to happen is Daniel's been given this vision, and it's of future things. Babylon's going to fall, and he's right there at the last year of it. Then after Babylon, then we have Media and Persia that team up together. Then we have Greece that comes on the scene. After Greece will be Rome, but what happens with Greece is Alexander the Great dies and his 4 generals take over, and he didn't appoint 4 generals to take over. They asked him on his deathbed, who do you want to take the kingdom? And he says, whoever has the most power. He said, I fought hard and to the inch of my life for this. Therefore, I don't want to just appoint it. Somebody needs to prove they should have it. And so, of course, all the generals took that as a challenge. So it turned into a civil war between all 4 of them to prove who had the might to be the number 1 guy. Well, one of these guys that you'll find this is all happening between the testaments, the intertestamental period. Antiochus Epiphanes is his name. That's one of his generals. And he comes in and he slaughters a pig in the temple. And the people try to point to that and destroys the temple. And because of that, people want to point to that and say, that's when this thing was fulfilled. That can't be when it was fulfilled. That's the little horn that we're referring to is not a man. It's something supernatural. Antiochus Epiphanes never reached up to heaven and drew down any stars, cast them to the ground. So it can't be him. It's got to be the devil. Revelation 8, verse 11. And not Revelation, Daniel. Daniel 8, verse 11. In the Old Testament, Daniel is the book of Revelation. Daniel 8, verse 11. Yet he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down, and an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of the transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. That's not a good prosperity. That's an evil, wicked prosperity. Yeah. We're going to get to the witchcraft part of it here in a minute, but he says here, this is all the little horn is doing all of this. It can't be Antiochus Epiphanes. He didn't do any of this. Now there's some small similarities. He did cause them to stop the sacrifice. He did defile the sanctuary. However, not to the full fulfillment of the passage.
This,
Antiochus Epiphanes?
yeah, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
This was before Christ.
Before Christ.
Christ hadn't yet said.
Correct.
When you see the destiny.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get there. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
He says, yet he magnified himself. Okay, that's the devil. It's all about him. That's why Christians, and just all humans really, should shy away from pride. Pride is one of those things that's the demon that's already in you is pride. And he pops up at all the wrong times. He said in verse 12, a host was given him. Okay, we've seen that. The host is an army. This is a supernatural spiritual army. It's given him because they come out of heaven. They're cast out of heaven with him. And now, why are they given to him? Against the daily sacrifice. That is, there's a supernatural warfare going on against something that's going to be going on in the tribulation that is correct. The daily sacrifice. That's a morning and evening offering that the priests did every day. And that was Hebrews talks about it, that wouldn't cleanse forever. They had to do it repeated every day. That's going to go on because the Jews in the tribulation will be back under the law. And it's going to be a spiritual thing. If God didn't care about that, then the supernatural forces wouldn't need to fight against it. But they're fighting against it. That's why this host is given to him. He says, by reason of the transgression, it cast the truth to the ground. Every age, every way that you please God, we call it salvation, and every dispensation that you come to God is truth. That's the way. Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. So he's going to cast down truth. How is he going to cast it down? He's going to eliminate the daily sacrifice. So that must be the salvation means in the tribulation. And now this is interesting. We were talking about the host in verse 12. A host was given against the daily sacrifice. It's more than just an army. Because an army, you would say, and they practiced. Our passage does not say, and they practiced. It says, and it practiced. That is, it's a spirit. You can feel the spirit. The spirit of iniquity is working right now. But it's going to be even worse. It's an it. It's a spirit of an age. And the spirit is going to be against the daily sacrifice. This is subtle, but you'll find it all through, and there's some passages where it's much more clear. But it's in the tribulation, they're going back to the Old Testament system, not faith. Faith is all you need right now. However, in the tribulation, it's going to be connected to this Old Testament system of sacrifice and temple worship. Practice and prosper. Joshua 5. Joshua 5, verse 13. People are pacifists, meaning they're against all war, but that's not God. One of his names is a man of war. That's right. So I wouldn't push too hard on being pacifistic and anti any kind of war. Look at Joshua 5, verse 13. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. I just like the wording. You understand from the wording, he's saying he's standing here and he looks up and he sees this man. But the way the Bible says it is against him. Well, when you see somebody with a sword in their hand, do you think they're for you? No, they're against you. He says, his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us or for our adversaries? And he said, Nay, but as the captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. Now that's a different classification. We've seen the prince of the hosts. This is the captain. That's the top dog, the number one general. As captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell upon his face to the earth and did worship and said unto him, What saith my Lord unto his servant? Good response. Now he said in Daniel that the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down. That is, this little horn doing something that no human has ever done. This little horn that he's talking about in Daniel is not anything any human has ever seen before. Now we've seen little types of it. Antiochus Epiphanes. Titus is another one who does the same thing. The other one is, I can't think of their names right now, but many of the sultans would come in, the Muslims would come in and do the same thing. When the Antichrist takes away this daily sacrifice, the Israelites are supposed to do something. They're supposed to know that triggers an event. And it's all bad news. It's a horror movie on high alert at that point. Daniel 8, verse 12. He says, And the host was given to him against the daily sacrifice by reason of the transgression. The transgression. As though it's some specific by reason of transgression. So there's some specific transgression that they're supposed to be able to identify. Look at Daniel 11, verse 31. We'll be there soon enough. Daniel 11:31. And arms shall stand on his part. Now, we don't have any problem understanding that. Arms, that is an army. We don't think that he has a bunch of arms pop out of his body. He says, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. So, in our age, you know what we say? We say the Lord is your strength. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And I'm weak. His strength is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, there's something connected with that sanctuary that's a godly strength that the Antichrist wants to corrupt and pollute. And that'll be an event that's going to trigger in a minute. And shall take away the daily sacrifice. So whatever he's going to do does just the opposite of strength. It takes away that daily sacrifice. And they shall place, here it is, the abomination that maketh desolate. Okay, that's the event. According to Jesus, that event did not take place under Antiochus Epiphanes. He was preaching about it when he was on earth. So it could not have been between the testaments. It couldn't have been ancient history. Matthew 24:15. Jesus says, when you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. That is, Jesus is saying, when you see it, it's something future. Hadn't happened. And I'm talking about what Daniel wrote about. He says, spoke. So, obviously, it was not fulfilled in the book of Daniel. You'll find a lot of people who will take the book of Daniel and say it's mostly all past history. That's your Presbyterian will say that. They'll put the interpretation as a historic interpretation. Mark 13. Mark 13, verse 14. Almost the same verse, but a little different. Mark 13:14. But when ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand where it ought not. Let him that readeth understand. Then let him that be in Judea flee to the mountains. That is, you better get up and leave at this point. Or there won't be any saving you. This happened historically, or not long after Jesus was crucified. The believers in Jerusalem, thinking of that quote by Jesus and of Daniel, thought that time had come because they saw Titus with his army show up in 70 AD in order to destroy the temple. And he did destroy it. And he did sacrifice a pig. And he did all these things that were wicked. However, it obviously did not fulfill the prophecy because the tribulation hadn't started yet. And it didn't pull down a third of the stars of the host of heaven. We know it didn't happen in 70 AD because Paul says this, that Christ is going to bruise Satan under your feet soon. Shortly. That is, it hasn't happened yet. So that couldn't have been the fulfillment of it. So Jesus says it ain't Antiochus Epiphanes, and Paul says it's not Titus either. And Revelation is going to reveal it's still future. Daniel 9, verse 26. Daniel 9:26. And after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. And unto the end thereof, and the end of the war, desolations are determined. That is, this is what's going to happen. Now, let's look at something there. The people of the prince that shall come. Now, who is that? Yeah, that's the devil. Because, verse 27, and he, the prince of the people, shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, 7 years. He's going to make a covenant, a peace treaty with Israel. And in the midst of the week, 3.5 years later, he shall cause the, here it is, sacrifice of the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate, even unto the consumption, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. There's that Antichrist sitting down in the temple declaring himself to be God. 2 Thessalonians 2:4, he says, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he's God. Nobody else would believe him, so he showed it to himself. I guess you should turn there. I want to show you one other thing. 2 Thessalonians 2:4, and we'll be done. 2 Thessalonians 2:4. The thing about, he says in Romans that they do things that are not convenient. That's the path of degradation, is inconvenience. It's more convenient to line up with what God has to say. You have to go out of your way to be satanic. Here, Satan himself revealed the truth. Who opposeth, and look at this, and exalteth himself. He's opposing who? Himself. He's even against himself. That's science. The satanic science, I call it. That's what it does. It flip-flops. It can't agree on what it thinks science is. The world's round. No, it's flat. It's heliocentricity or geocentricity. It's all flipping, flopping back and forth. You need to wash your hands in a bowl of water. No, you need running water. You need soap. No, you don't need soap. I mean, it's back and forth. You need a mask. No, you need 4 masks. That's science. He says it right here. Opposeth and exalteth himself. He's opposing even himself. Well, you know he is because the devils believe and tremble. So there's a part of the devil that does believe, yet he opposes himself in everything he does. Just like you'll find in the world, anyone who is unsaved, God has put just enough light in everybody to recognize truth when they see it. And in order to go against it, they have to oppose themselves, just like their father, the devil. All right, we'll pick up there next week at Daniel 8:13.